In this section, we've been setting up a table of values with like story problem type situations and then making graphs. On problems like this, we're basically doing exactly the same thing. It's just that there's no story involved. So just set up a table of values by choosing easy numbers. And we talked about this before. We want to choose easy numbers, but we want them to also be positive and negative. Because a lot of times, and especially on problems like these, things happen on the other side of the y-axis that we otherwise wouldn't be able to see if we didn't pick negative values as well. So I'm going to set up a table. I don't have a whole lot of room here. Just going to make x and y right there. I need to choose some values for x. Need some negative numbers and positive numbers. I don't see any fractions to worry about here. So I'm just going to go with -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Hopefully that's enough to see what's going on. If it's not, then pick a couple more numbers. But this is probably good. So now I need to know what this notation right here means. What is that? The absolute value of x. Okay, so absolute value, remember, is a distance, which means that once I take the absolute value, it will be what sign? Positive. All right. So I take -2 and I plug it in here. The absolute value of -2 is what? 2. And then in my head, I think 2 minus 4 is -2. And then just keep going. Plug -1 in. -1, absolute value of that is 1. And then 1 minus 4 is -3. Then I plug 0 in. The absolute value of 0 is 0. And then 0 minus 4 is -4. And then I plug 1 in. The absolute value of 1 is 1. And then 1 minus 4 is -3 again. And then I plug 2 in, and what do I get? -2. So now I have a bunch of ordered pairs that I can graph. Notice that I do have negatives involved on my grid that I've given you. We have -2, -2. So how do I graph -2, -2? It's -2, comma, -2. So left 2, and then down 2, right there. And then I have -1, -3. How do I graph that? Left 1, and then down 3. And then I have 0, -4. How do I graph that? Just go down to -4. And then I have 1, -3. How do I graph that? To the right 1 and then down 3. And then 2, -2. Right 2, down 2. What does that graph look like? It looks like a V. So my graph is going to look like a V. Actually, any function that has absolute value involved winds up looking like a V. We're going to graph more of these later on. The rules for these still apply. You have to draw, if it's going to be a straight line, it's going to have to be a straight line. Use something that's straight to draw those lines. The line has to go all the way through the grid, arrows at the end. For the second one here, y equals x squared plus 1. Again, I'm going to choose some easy numbers, x and y. I'll go -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Now if I take -2 and I plug it in, then I have to have -2 squared, which is what? -2 times -2 is +4, and then +4 plus 1 is 5. So remember, when you square something, it becomes positive. Then we have -1 squared. We get 1, and then 1 plus 1 is 2. And then we have 0 squared, which is 0 plus 1 is 1. And then we have 1 squared, which is 1, and then 1 plus 1 is 2. And then we have 2 squared, which is 4, and then 4 plus 1 is 5. So now we have these ordered pairs. -2, +5. So to the left 2, and then up 5 from there. And then -1, 2, so right there. And then 0, 1 is right there. And then 1, 2 is there. and then 2, 5 is there. Is that the same type of graph as the one that we just drew? Is that a V? It's not. Anybody know what this is? That is a parabola, yeah. One of the most exciting things in math, I think. So we're going to have to draw this in using a smooth curve, and I know that your first attempt at a parabola isn't going to be that great, and that's okay. You're going to learn how to draw these later on. Yeah, I take great pride in drawing good parabolas. This one I'd give myself about a 7 or 8. So when we get here in this class, and we will, then you need to make sure that you draw good parabolas. Last one, same idea. I need to pick some positive numbers and negative numbers. I'm going to go with -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. Hopefully you're seeing a theme here on these numbers that I'm picking. Now I take -2 and I plug it in here. And the question is, what is -2 to the third power? A lot? It's -8. So that means -2 times itself 3 times, right? And then we're going to have that plus 1. So -2 times -2 is +4, but then +4 times -2 is -8. -8 plus 1 is -7. All right, what is -1 to the third power? It's -1 plus 1 is 0. And then what is 0 to the third power? 0 plus 1 is 1. What's 1 to the third power? 1 plus 1 is 2. And then what's 2 to the third power? 8. And then 8 plus 1 is 9. Okay, this one's going to be kind of an interesting looking graph. You may or may not have seen one of these before. But we graph it, -2, -7, which is there. And then -1, 0, which is there. And then 0, 1, which is there. And then 1, 2, which is there. And then 2, 9. We have 2 here. We can make it to 7, and then I'm going to have to kind of guess where 9 is. Usually that's a pretty bad idea to do. Normally you want to rescale that, but for this it's going to be just fine. All right, does that one look like either of the other two graphs? No. This actually kind of looks like sort of I will call it sort of like a snake graph. It has a curve in it. These are all smooth curves, by the way. There's no sharp corners. There's no lines involved. It's all nice and smooth. Notice that I didn't draw like something that looks like this for that parabola. That's not what that is. I didn't draw something that looks like this for that, okay? These are smooth curves. This is your basic cubic function right here. This is your basic quadratic function, a degree of 2 squared on that x. This is your basic absolute value function. And that kind of wraps up the section for us.